What's up, everybody? This is Alex, a PhD candidate at NUS Business School in Singapore. And this time, I thought I'd share some reflections about a debate that has emerged in the Futures and Foresight community following a paper I have co authored that has been published in the journal Futures and Foresight Science. And for those of you who don't know this paper, it is titled The Resistance to Scientific Theory in Futures and Foresight and What to Do About It. I wrote this paper with Thomas Chermak, and you will be able to find quite a lot of information about this paper on YouTube, including a video abstract and also a 1 hour long talk, all of which I've pasted in the description box down below. So this video does not focus so much on the content of the paper, which you will find elsewhere, but rather it focuses on some more profound ideological conflicts in academia at large, but yet reflected in the field of futures and foresight, a conflict that both motivated the paper, but also was shown really clearly in the debate following the paper. And I thought this is the right time to share some reflections with you now that the paper is fully published on the journal, along with 10 commentaries by other scholars and also a rejoinder written by Thomas Chermak and me. So, in short, the paper criticized the resistance that the community of future studies scholars in academia and foresight practitioners in industry have towards science, and in particular, the resistance to studying foresight practices like scenario planning, for example, scientifically. The paper did not criticize future studies or foresight for not being scientific. Be careful because that was a common misunderstanding. The two things are actually different. Now, long story short, the paper received a lot of responses, and to simplify, many of those responses were positive, majorly from those who do understand what science can do for us, but many of the responses were also negative, majorly from those who resist science without necessarily having been adequately exposed to it. And this latter kind of responses really speaks of an unfortunate ideological position in academia that the paper and the following debate uncovered so well. We still see very skeptical positions regarding whether there is an objective truth to be studied and whether we are able to study it reliably. Now, why is this? Well, future studies and the emerging discipline of futures and foresight as a consequence originate from streams of thought in academia that emphasize the importance of individual perception, of individual experiences, which is very important. But the same streams of thought are very skeptical of the existence of an objective truth. And they're also very skeptical of our ability to study human beings and their behavior, including futures and foresight practices, scientifically. And I'm thinking in particular of postmodernism and the strong relativism that it brings along with it. A relativism that oftentimes is fueled by an approximate understanding of science itself. Now, my personal experience offers some interesting anecdotal evidence about this. I still remember that during my master's degree in future studies at Tamkam University in Taipei, in more than one occasion, I was admonished when I pressed professors to tell me why future studies was so subjective or even relativist. For example, once I asked the professor why the metaphor, the last layer of CLA, which is a prominent foresight method, cannot be supported by cognitive science research. And the professor simply told me that it was pointless because there is nothing reliable about science. Yet this professor did not teach anything about science. In another occasion, I asked another very prominent professor in the department about his thoughts on blending future studies with a more objective discipline in the social sciences, economics. And the reply was, we all live in different worlds. And that is to say, since he believed that that combination was not fruitful, and I did, this to him seemed like a proof that there is nothing we can agree on with regards to the world outside of us, so it is pointless to discuss. Yet again, this professor neither taught or did research about science. Now, I'll let you think of yourself how detrimental this way of looking at science can be. And unfortunately, this extreme line of thought may be harbored by other disciplines in the social sciences, not just future studies, including sociology, anthropology, and more. Now, when this occurs long enough, students of those disciplines just attack science without really knowing it at all. And I'm a proof of this myself. As a student of one of those disciplines, future studies, I too was indoctrinated on the uselessness of science. But I was quickly disabused of my ignorance about what science can do by a scientist. This happened very early in my PhD degree when I decided to relay my disbelief about science to a seasoned German psychologist, Professor Michael Fries, at the Management and Organization Department at NUS Business School in Singapore. I told him I didn't believe we could find an objective truth in empirical research because many psychological studies disagree with each other, something that postmodernists tell each other a lot and that I had also learned in my future studies degree. And then Michael simply explained to me that we actually have a solution to that problem. It's called meta analysis, a method that investigates the aggregate results of dozens of studies. So, like my personal experience, in many cases, disbelief in science can simply be cleared by understanding science. Now, to be fair, these very strong disbeliefs about science are in turn fueled by an opposite and equally detrimental blind trust in scientific observation, what is called positivism. Positivism states that detached empirical observation is paramount in studying phenomena, and this emphasis may be sometimes a bit too strong. For example, when it is taken to the extreme, as in the beliefs that what you see is what there is and replication may not be necessary. There is only one way, the best way to do research, often quantitative and deductive, and all other ways are inferior. There are only a few good journals or A journals where you can read science, and all other journals are not good enough, etc. Now, why these beliefs in science are fueled by such positivist ideas? Well, because positivism can be very loop-sided and almost totalitarian, if you will, as in the ideas I just mentioned. And over several decades, this led to the emergence of opposite subjective philosophies of science that simply didn't trust science because it was too loop-sided, including postmodernism, among others, from which future studies takes inspiration. Now, as a reaction to positivism, postmodernism says that positivism is oppressive and puts in question even the possibility of detached empirical observation because everything is affected by our idiosyncratic view about the world. And thus, it focuses on the importance of subjective experiences, subjective perspectives. This is certainly refreshing and insightful, especially in contrast to a science that completely ignores individuals' perceptions, because it provides new angles to look at things. Yet, as we have seen, it also can go too far, especially when objectivity is completely rejected. So, we have two extreme camps, postmodernism and positivism, both brought to the extreme. And because this is a very old debate, one would think that it is not there anymore. Yet it is still around, although in a very subtle manner. Let me explain why. In many disciplines in the social sciences, including economics and management and organizational science, there is a so called obsession over theory, which means that academic journals publish articles oftentimes only if they contribute new theoretical insights about unobserved phenomena. And they very seldom publish articles if they test already studied phenomena. Now, this custom is very subtly subscribing to a positivist ideology because by not publishing replications, it subscribes to a what is seen once is what there is kind of view of science, rather than to a view of science that is more attentive to confirming, replicating, and triangulating findings. On the top of this, positivism is subtly present in social science academia in many other ways. For example, just simply exclusively adhering to specific research methods, often quantitative and not qualitative, is positivism brought to the extreme because it precludes the understanding of phenomena that may need qualitative observation, like processes that unfold over time. So, in short, An intransigent view of science, as with extreme positivism, which is unfortunately still very much present in social science academia, produces and fuels strong disbeliefs in science, like postmodernism, which in part inspired future studies, which is why many responses to our article about the importance of science in Futures and Foresight were negative. Now, the good news, and also to conclude, is that many of these responses actually changed their mind once we clarified that science doesn't have to be intransigent and oppressive as in positivism brought to the extreme. In fact, what we explain in the paper, and even more so in the rejoinder to the commentaries to the paper, is that if we use a critical realist view of science, we can take into account both objective truth and subjective interpretations of it. A sort of a way in between that acknowledges that reality does exist independent of our observations, but yet we can have different or contrasting subjective observations of it on the way to obtaining knowledge because we simply do mistakes. Hence, the importance of replicating findings until those different observations clarify what we are studying. Now, luckily, this critical realist view of science is embraced by an increasing number of scientists. And most importantly, this view of science can also be applied to study futures and foresight practices. And it should be, in order to improve our understanding of what we do when we practice futures and foresight in organizations, communities, or institutions. So, bottom line, understanding what science is, especially in its critical realist version, and that it is in fact useful, literally destroys strong disbeliefs in science. So I think that the debate I've been reflecting on in the past few minutes really speaks of the importance of understanding science in futures and foresight and also other disciplines in the social sciences so that we do not fall into these extreme ideological positions I just mentioned. So I really hope that this video was useful for you to better understand the role of science in futures and foresight and in fact in the social sciences in general. If you liked this video, I would super appreciate to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I will have many more videos about science and about futures and foresight coming up in the future. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye!